Welcome to the Secret of Oneness. You all know me because we are one. For those of you that are still asleep, my name is Stephen. And the topic I'm going to talk about tonight is called the Lazarus technique that I created. The topic is called Command Reality Like Jesus Did. So as I always like to do, I always like to give a Neville Goddard quote. And so here we go. You have become so enmeshed in the belief that you are man, that you have forgotten the glorious being that you are. Now with your memory restored, decree the unseen to appear, and it shall appear. For all things are compelled to respond to the voice of God, your awareness of being. The world is at your command. So that leads us to the scripture that we're going to talk about. I have 3 scriptures I'm going to go through very quickly. A lot of it is stuff that I didn't need to kind of pull apart in detail, but I did pull out some stuff in the scriptures, and this is going to be extremely powerful. And at the very end, I'm going to teach you how to do the Lazarus technique. So we're talking here about John 11, verses 42 through 44. And so it says, "But I knew that you always hear me. Nevertheless, because of the people standing around, I said it, so that they may believe that you sent me." And when he said these things, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." Out came the man who had died, bound hand and foot with wrappings, and his face was wrapped around with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." So that leads me into some of the breakdown of the scripture here. And I'm sure you've heard the scripture before if you've been in church. This is a pretty well-known story in the scriptures about Lazarus, who had died. He had been dead for 4 days. And again, back in those days, they believed that after 3 days, the spirit left the body. And so for anybody to be raised from the dead after 4 days was just impossible. And Jesus did it on the 4th day. Okay. So let's talk about some of the parts here of the scripture. So first of all, the word I, when it says, "But I knew that you always hear me," when he says the word I, actually in Greek, that's 1473, and it's actually ego. So the I is ego. Okay. And so I'm a little bit of a side note here. When we say I am, what that's really saying is the word am in Greek is 1510, and it's eimi, E-I-M-I. It's pronounced eimi. It says that the basic Greek verb which expresses being, it means to be, or am or is. It says in its counterparts properly conveyed straightforward being or existence without explicit limits. So when you say I am, you're saying the ego exists as existence without limits within. So I'm not saying that the ego is unlimited. I'm saying that what's within the ego, what is within the carnal body, the carnal realm within, is existence without limits. Okay, and so that's the identity that you need to live from. Okay, that is what's within you. So when you're saying I am, if you say I am poor, you're saying I exist as someone who's poor. Okay. And so I'm going to talk about a little bit of that here in a few minutes. Now, again, I didn't break down a lot of the words in here, but where he says, "But I knew that you always hear me," Jesus was saying to God, "I know that you always hear me." In past tense, he's saying that you always hear me. Okay. He wasn't asking God to hear him. He wasn't praying to God. He was saying, "I know that you always hear me." Now, the word "you hear" in Greek is 191, and it's pronounced akuo, and it's actually the root word for the word acoustics. Okay, and I found this very interesting. The word "hear" or "you hear" means to give audience, come to the ears, or be reported. Okay, so it means to give an audience. That's pretty interesting. And so I'm going to talk about a scripture here that's kind of related, but not related to Lazarus specifically. But in 1 John 5:15, it says, And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the request which we have asked from him, which is inner talking or within. Okay? I want to say that again. This was John writing, and he was talking about God. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask. So whenever we're having inner talking, or we are maybe we're scripting something, but we're thinking it, or we're imagining it, that is God hearing you. Even when you see pictures in your mind and you're imagining, right? Like Neville would say, if you wanted a specific hat and you imagined yourself wearing that hat, that is God within hearing you, because he is giving you audience. Okay? And we know that he hears us in whatever we ask. Once we know that he heard us, we know that we have the request which we've asked of him. Okay? So it doesn't say that, well, if he hears us, he's going to think about it. It says if he hears us, you're going to receive it. Okay? And so I have here that it's good or bad. God hears, and when you say, I am poor, you're saying I exist as the ego as poor. And God hears, and you have your request. So when people say, I am rich, I am confident, whatever, they're saying I exist as confidence, I exist as wealth, I exist as being poor. Okay? And when you're saying that within, you're saying that's how I exist. And when God hears you say that, you have that request. Okay? And so the next part here, it says they may believe. So when Jesus said that, I said this out loud that they may believe, he's saying that I want to persuade them. I want to persuade them that when I speak something out loud, when I declare something, when I command something, you can be fully persuaded in what's about to happen. And the word sent is the word Greek 649. And it means away from or send. It means properly to send away or to commission. Or passively, it means to send on a defined mission by a superior. Okay? So if you had a boss, he said, go mop the floors or go do this project, you're being sent to do something. So Jesus was trying to point across here that he had the power and the authority, and he was commissioned to do this. Okay? Now, verse 43, this is what I found very interesting, which I did not know this until I studied this out. In verse 43, when he says, Lazarus come out, the word Lazarus in Hebrew, the original word, is two words, and it means God and help. And the word God is made up of the letters Aleph and Lamed, and Aleph means oneness and unity. It can also mean the strength of the ox. Lamed means authority, and the root word comes from learn or teach. And the word help comes from the word, the letter IN, which means to see beyond the physical or spiritual vision and understanding. And the next letter is Zion, which means sustenance, nourishment, or it can also refer to food. And the last letter here is the letter Resh, and it means the head or the beginning. Okay? And so I found that interesting because it talks about Lazarus being raised from the dead. And Jesus was basically raising the help of God from the dead. I'm going to get into that here in a second when we talk a little bit about it. Verse 44, being bound. Now remember, he was bound, and it says in the Greek, that bound means to bind or imprisoned. It also means tied, binds, binding, or prisoners. His feet and his hands were bound. And the word hands figuratively can also mean power. So the power was bound. Okay? And the face, in the Greek, it's 3799, and it actually means the appearance or the countenance or the face. And again, appearance is just how something looks. Okay? And so what I have here is that Jesus raised God's help from the dead. He released, unbound the power from imprisonment. And that's what you guys have to do. You have to release whatever is binding you, whatever you feel trapped in, whatever you're imprisoned with. You have to release all that. Jesus said, Lazarus, come forth. He said, God's help, come forth. Remember that whatever he hears within, you have that petition, that desire, okay? And so what I have here, so this is the Lazarus technique. First of all, you have to recognize that you exist without limits, that you are the I am, okay? You are Lazarus. You're God's help, okay? You're recognizing that you exist without any limits, okay? Now, remember, your carnal mind is going to fight you on that. Your carnal mind is going to say, nope, I tried that before. It doesn't work. Nope. Okay. On a side note, go read 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 10 through 16. That is the scripture, and I know I've talked about it before. That's the scripture where it talks about that the carnal mind cannot understand the things of God. And essentially what it's saying is that the mind cannot understand the things of the Spirit. Okay? So when you just know something, your mind really can't grasp that sometimes because it's not made of God. Okay? It's carnal. So if you get a chance and you want to study this out a little bit deeper and understand that part, you can. So recognize that you exist without limits, that you are the I am. And whenever you say I am, you're saying I exist as. Okay? And when you say I exist as, whatever you speak, God hears you. Whether it's within yourself, inner talking, whatever it may be, God is hearing that and you are creating that in the moment. Okay? Now, I have here, recognize that you exist without limits, and God within is your audience. And God hears. So he's your audience. He's within. He hears everything. Recognize that you exist without limits and that God is your audience, and he hears. And when God hears, you know you have the request or the desire. Okay? It's that simple. The Lazarus technique is to recognize that you exist without limits and that God is your audience and he hears. And when he hears, you know you have that request. It's done. Okay? To be fully persuaded. Now here's the key. Be fully persuaded that you have the desire within because God heard you. The key is to now unbind yourself from how it looks. Don't look at the circumstances. Don't look at what you perceive with your eyes or what you hear. Oh, my SP now has a third party. Now, the bank's calling and say that my account's, in the red. Don't look. Unbind yourself from the reality of that carnal reality. Unbind yourself from it. Okay? Release yourself from outer conditions. Okay? Those conditions might be there. They might be those conditions, but you are the I am. And God hears. And when God hears, you know that you have the petitions you've asked of him and you can be fully persuaded. Now unbind yourself from those grave clothes. Unbind yourself, right? Release that from the power is in your hands, okay? And that's being released. That's what he did with Lazarus. He said, unbind his hands and his feet, let him go. So unbind your hands, unbind the power, right? When you unbind yourself from those conditions, when you unbind yourself and release yourself from those conditions that are happening outside of yourself, release what it looks like. Don't look at them. Don't worry about them. Just say, no, I'm fully persuaded. This is who I am. I am the person who has that SP. I am the person who has that wealth. That's who I am. I'm fully persuaded, no matter what the outer conditions are telling me. Release yourself from that imprisonment. This is what's going to imprison you. This is a prison in here. And it will try to pull you back into safety and say, nope, don't do that. That's not who you are. And you have to go beyond that. Remember, the word IN means to see beyond the physical. It's spiritual vision and understanding. So the word help means to see beyond the physical and understand that you have the sustenance and nourishment and the food within from the beginning. That's what that means. And it means God is the authority and the unity is the authority within you. That's the Lazarus. You are the Lazarus being resurrected here. Okay? Now see beyond that with your spiritual vision and understanding. And don't allow those grave clothes to bind you, okay? Because you know that you have the request. Remember, the inner talking is always heard. Oh, I'm not good enough. Correct. Oh, I don't have any money. Correct. Right? Whatever he hears, you have that petition you've asked of him, whether it's good or bad. Okay? So again, 1 John 5:15, and we know that he hears us in whatever we ask. We know that we have the request which we have asked of him. So that's inner talking. Whatever's happening within you, it's imagination, it's scripting, whatever it may be, he hears, and you have that petition. Okay? So the last thing I'll say, I'll repeat it one more time. The Lazarus technique is to recognize that you exist without limits. And God within is your audience, and he hears. And when he hears, you now have the request. Know that you have that request. It's your desire's been fulfilled. Be fully persuaded, and now unbind yourself from how it looks. Release yourself from those outer conditions.